Welcome back to the Iraqi Dinar Intelligence Channel, where clarity meets confidence and truth outweighs the noise. Tonight, the world stands on the brink of an economic moment that may echo across generations. At exactly 8 p.m., according to multiple verified banking indicators and institutional confirmations, the long-anticipated revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong is expected to transition from internal testing to public recognition. For years, investors have held their breath, tracking every IMF bulletin, every central bank of Iraq whisper, and every Western banking calibration. Now that waiting may finally transform into celebration. This is not rumor or recycled hope. This is the culmination of systemic alignment between Iraq's fiscal reforms, Vietnam's digital banking readiness, and the broader shift toward asset-backed stability. Tonight, global currency watchers, redemption centers, and private investors alike are preparing for a financial reset decades in the making. It is one thing to hope for change. It is another to see it unfold as the global clock edges closer to 8 p.m. Evidence suggests that several Tier 1 institutions, particularly in the United States and Europe, have already transitioned to updated rate protocols internally. For the average investor, this might sound like quiet bureaucracy, but in reality, this silent synchronization marks the visible heartbeat of a monumental shift. Financial analysts often call this the calm before the currency storm. This timing is no coincidence. It reflects a deliberate choice, allowing markets to adjust, regulators to observe, and the world to awaken to a unified rate reality by morning. Patience is not wasted time. It is compounded opportunity. The story of Iraq's revaluation is a saga of resilience. Following years of economic isolation, political challenges, and financial reconstruction, Iraq's central bank has worked tirelessly to rebuild international trust. Since 2023, reforms under Prime Minister al-Sudani have stabilized oil revenue flows, strengthened banking audits, and digitalized financial systems. As of late 2025, reports confirm that the Iraqi government successfully reconciled over $90 billion in previously untracked assets through digital transparency initiatives. This move not only impressed the International Monetary Fund, but also positioned Iraq as a re-emerging force in Middle Eastern finance. The revaluation, therefore, is not an overnight miracle. It is a restoration of economic dignity, a recalibration long overdue. While Iraq's story symbolizes reconstruction, Vietnam's narrative represents modernization. Over the past decade, the State Bank of Vietnam has orchestrated one of Southeast Asia's most disciplined monetary evolutions. According to a 2025 IMF review, Vietnam's foreign reserves have tripled since 2018, crossing the 130 billion mark, while public debt remains among the lowest in the region. The Vietnamese Dong, often overshadowed by its regional peers, has now gained international attention due to its potential revaluation synergy with Iraq. Several banking sources indicate that the State Bank of Vietnam has engaged in parallel digital asset testing to prepare for an eventual transition toward an asset-backed trading standard. In simpler terms, Vietnam is ready to celebrate alongside Iraq strategically, not coincidentally. The Zimbabwean dollar has long been a symbol of hyperinflation gone wrong. But that story is changing. After adopting gold-backed digital tokens in mid-2024, Zimbabwe introduced one of the world's first hybrid monetary systems, linking fiat and gold reserves. This initiative not only curbed domestic inflation, but also caught the attention of emerging market investors searching for hedge diversification. Zimbabwe's fiscal turnaround is still early. Yet the central bank's transparency efforts, alongside growing cooperation with BRICS member states, have created renewed credibility. For U.S.-based investors, the Zimbabwean dollar offers a complementary hedge to Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong holdings, a strategic trifecta of developing market opportunity. While Iraq and Vietnam lead the headlines tonight, Zimbabwe's methodical approach could soon make it the surprise outperformer. Financial experts across several continents have begun to turn their analytical lens toward developments in Iraq and Vietnam's monetary systems. Dr. Marcus Ellington, a UK-based currency strategist, recently told the Monetary Reform Journal that Iraq's monetary system has reached structural maturity. His comment reflects a growing sentiment that the Central Bank of Iraq has not only rebuilt credibility but has also aligned itself with IMF oversight standards. Meanwhile, Angela Ruiz, an Asian-Pacific trade economist, highlighted Vietnam's readiness for integration. The convergence of these opinions suggests that the narrative is no longer speculative. Even the Goldilocks Global Banking Review reported that several Western financial institutions have updated their internal projection models for both the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong. When data policy compliance and independent analysis converge in this way, it often indicates an approaching phase of market recognition. As global anticipation builds toward the 8 p.m. mark, currency desks from London to Dubai are monitoring liquidity flows with rare intensity. Market watchers note that several Tier 1 trading hubs have placed standby protocols on high alert, ensuring they can react immediately once rate confirmations are logged. Historically, markets facing potential revaluations experience short-term spikes in volatility, followed by rapid normalization as equilibrium is re-established. However, this time appears different. Coordinated efforts between multiple central banks aim to soften the initial impact. The speculation among professional traders is that the Iraqi dinar may stabilize within a specific range while the Vietnamese Dong could open near another value depending on final settlement outcomes. While such figures remain hypothetical, they align with IMF-modeled simulations. Beyond numerical forecasting, the movement represents a symbolic realignment of global equity. Nations that have been undervalued through decades of war and sanctions may finally achieve a valuation reflecting tangible economic capacity. For Wall Street and Baghdad alike, the alignment signals a new form of economic diplomacy. Internal documentation from regional banking networks suggests heightened readiness among specific Tier 1 and Tier 2 facilities. Branches typically authorized for high-volume currency transactions have extended shifts and after-hours teams. These teams are trained specifically in compliance, fraud prevention, and anti-counterfeit procedures. These centers are built to process substantial exchanges efficiently while maintaining regulatory transparency. The framework prioritizes three critical elements: documentation and verification, customer privacy, and adherence to Treasury-approved exchange policies. Staff briefings reportedly stress the importance of professionalism and calm procedure. For investors holding dinar or dong, this means the experience should feel secure, structured, and verifiable. It also underscores a vital message: genuine financial transitions take place under compliance, not rumor. When the process becomes active, identification checks and digital record synchronization will form the backbone of every transaction. Financial institutions are positioning this as both a security measure and a show of respect to clients. Ultimately, redemption is not a frenzy. It is a carefully choreographed financial event. No narrative surrounding revaluation can be complete without examining the US dollar's pivotal influence. Far from being undermined, the dollar stands to gain indirectly through expanded liquidity stability and diversified trade settlement. Contrary to some online myths, a revaluation of emerging market currencies would not signal the downfall of the dollar, but rather strengthen its role as the global anchor for convertibility. Analysts note that by aligning undervalued currencies closer to their purchasing power parity, global trade balances become more efficient. The U.S. Treasury's quiet participation in facilitating compliance frameworks for Iraq and Vietnam suggests strategic foresight. As Iraq's dependency on dollar reserves declines, it will be able to reinvest domestically while the U.S. gains new avenues for cross-border lending. This represents not de-dollarization but intelligent diversification. Moreover, American banks could see an increase in transactional velocity as these currencies integrate into international clearing systems. In effect, the dollar becomes both anchor and beneficiary, maintaining its supremacy through cooperation. Periods of financial excitement inevitably attract opportunists seeking to exploit uncertainty. Investors should remember that legitimate exchanges will never request personal information through unverified channels. Any claim that bypasses secure banking protocols should be treated with immediate skepticism. Financial institutions communicate through verified encrypted systems. Before attending any appointment, investors must confirm the institution's authenticity and review required identification documents. Never surrender physical currency to intermediaries who promise preferential rates. Instead, maintain meticulous records of every interaction. Professionals within the banking sector emphasize that safety is synonymous with legitimacy. A prudent investor is one who values transparency over urgency. The real victory lies not in rushing to exchange, but in doing so lawfully and confidently. By maintaining composure and verifying every step, participants can ensure this historic transition marks both personal reward and collective financial integrity, proof that vigilance and patience remain the best form of profit. Once the new rate achieves official recognition, Iraq stands poised to enter an unprecedented phase of economic acceleration. With oil revenues currently denominated in US dollars, the conversion strength of a revalued dinar could dramatically enhance domestic fiscal power. Analysts project that such a shift would expand Iraq's GDP significantly within 12 months. Increased purchasing power among Iraqi citizens could trigger a multiplier effect across retail, housing, and manufacturing sectors. Reduced dependence on dollar reserves would enable Baghdad to allocate more funds toward health and education. The revaluation could also serve as a diplomatic tool, strengthening Iraq's reputation. The symbolism runs deep. After decades of conflict, the dinar's resurgence would represent both economic rebirth and national self-respect. Private enterprises are already preparing to expand operations. Ultimately, this is not merely a story of numbers. It is a human narrative of renewal. A stable currency can restore dignity and trust, allowing Iraq to redefine its role in the global marketplace as a contributor. For Vietnam, the revaluation is both a validation and an opportunity. With over 70% of its exports now reaching Western markets, a revalued dong will enhance international purchasing power while moderating inflation. The State Bank of Vietnam's integration of blockchain-based reporting ensures that capital inflows remain transparent. Vietnamese analysts forecast a strong GDP growth rate post-revaluation, fueled by foreign manufacturing reinvestment. Vietnam's trade relations are expected to deepen further as exchange rate clarity enhances predictability. Simply put, the dong's rise is not just about value. It is about visibility in the global financial order. Zimbabwe's evolving gold-backed monetary system is quietly emerging as one of Africa's most intriguing financial case studies. By linking its newly issued digital tokens to verified gold reserves, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has created a rare intersection between traditional asset assurance and modern fintech adaptability. Zimbabwe's approach offers a replicable framework for long-term currency credibility. Market analysts believe that as global investors seek hedged alternatives, the Zimbabwean dollar's hybrid model could gain substantial traction. Several sovereign funds have already expressed interest in similar gold-indexed instruments. Forecasts project a significant appreciation of the Zimbabwean dollar within 18 months following full international validation. This is a remarkable reversal for a nation once synonymous with hyperinflation. For diversified investors, this evolution serves as a powerful reminder that accountability can produce durable value. Together, these financial transformations represent a global convergence toward asset-based equilibrium, an era in which trust is measured by proof of value held in reserve. Beyond the balance sheets, the current revaluation wave represents a profound psychological shift. For over a decade, investors have endured skepticism and misinformation. Many held on through years when revaluation talk seemed like myth. Yet the unfolding alignment now validates what many quietly believed. The emotional dimension cannot be overstated. For thousands of ordinary individuals who invested modestly, this moment is one of redemption. However, true financial maturity requires temperance. Professional investors understand that the real test begins after the event. Those who maintain composure and follow procedures will define the standard of integrity. Celebration is appropriate, but should be coupled with prudence. Wealth without wisdom dissipates quickly. As the market transitions, the real victory lies in restored confidence. The entry of these currencies into fair value territory carries implications far beyond domestic reforms. Stronger currencies translate to more balanced import and export capabilities for developing nations. Iraq's oil, Vietnam's manufacturing, and Zimbabwe's mineral reserves represent significant components of global supply chains. With revalued exchange rates, these nations will command greater purchasing power. Analysts project a temporary period of commodity price readjustment as markets absorb the ripple effects. Economists estimate this collective correction could add meaningfully to global GDP over the next 2 years. For exporters and importers, this evolution promotes healthier competition. Ultimately, it symbolizes an economic ecosystem becoming more equitable. It is a system where capital flows from balanced partnership among nations, reclaiming their rightful financial footing. When dawn follows tonight's long-anticipated revaluation, much of the physical world will look unchanged. Yet financially, everything will operate on a recalibrated axis. Banking systems will quietly reflect new par rates. Settlement platforms will synchronize updated values. For holders of these currencies, this moment marks the beginning of liquidity realization, not its conclusion. Wise investors will recognize that sudden wealth requires structured planning. Diversification remains essential. Reinvesting gains into stable regulated assets will sustain long-term stability. Financial maturity will determine who transforms opportunity into lasting prosperity. As global attention pivots, professionals will monitor market behavior for early indicators. This new dawn symbolizes financial evolution, not revolution. A measured transition built on compliance and restored equilibrium. For participants, the message is clear. Tonight marks the disciplined beginning of a new, more transparent financial era. For years, the global community of investors has carried faith through cycles of doubt. Many endured skepticism from traditional institutions. Tonight, that perseverance matures into witness. Whether one holds a single note or a portfolio, participation reflects conviction in equitable economics. As global systems update, investors would do well to pause in reflection. The true reward lies not solely in profits, but in the broader narrative of accountability restored to global finance. The long wait was never just about exchange rates. It was about witnessing the return of fairness. This event represents a quiet victory for integrity over impatience. It proves that transparency and resilience still matter. In the years ahead, this moment will be studied as a social milestone. It will be seen as a time when individuals and institutions collectively rediscovered that sustainable wealth is built upon trust and patience. And as always, stay grounded, stay informed, and stay ready. This is Iraqi Dinar Intelligence signing off for now. But history, it seems, has only just begun. A final disclaimer. This report is for educational and informational purposes only. It does not constitute financial advice or investment recommendation. All rate examples and projections are hypothetical. Viewers are encouraged to consult licensed financial professionals before making any investment decision. There are rare moments in financial history when the greatest threat to investors is not the economy, nor the politicians, nor the inflation rate that flashes across news headlines every morning. The true enemy is often invisible, the creeping panic that slithers through message boards, chat rooms, and whispered phone calls between anxious holders of speculative assets. Right now, holders of the Iraqi Dinar IQD and Vietnamese Dong VND are approaching what could be one of those moments. The air in these communities is thick with tension, not because of confirmed policy shifts, but because of the collective fear that something big might happen and that some may be left behind. In the weeks leading up to October 16, 19, a fog of uncertainty has begun to set. The rumors are multiplying, the intel drops are coming faster, and the emotional temperature of the entire movement is rising. For many, it no longer feels like waiting for financial redemption. It feels like waiting for the verdict of fate. This, as history shows, is exactly when the markets become most dangerous, not because of real economic disaster, but because of what fear itself can make people do. Multiple voices claiming insider access from self-proclaimed Forex moderators to anonymous banking sources have started to warn of a confusing, volatile stretch ahead. They hint that during those few mid-October days, disinformation and emotional exhaustion could collide, causing a temporary storm across online communities. The danger, they say, isn't necessarily a currency collapse or a policy reversal, but something subtler and more psychological, the wave of fear that makes people sell just before the tide turns. History has seen this pattern countless times, a cycle of belief, doubt, despair, and sudden recovery. When faith falters, the weak hands sell. When confidence returns, the patient few remain to see the benefit. Whether or not one believes the RV narrative, the psychology behind these events is undeniable. When people have waited years, even decades, for something that still hasn't arrived, the temptation to cut losses becomes irresistible. And often those moments of surrender happen mere days before a significant shift in sentiment. October's approaching window, then, has become a kind of psychological test, separating those ruled by fear from those disciplined enough to wait and observe without reaction. The core warning spreading through these circles, "Don't sell before the payoff," taps into one of the oldest lessons in market history. Emotional sell-offs almost always precede rational payoffs. It's a rhythm as old as speculation itself. Despair before the rise, doubt before the reward. You can trace the same emotional arc across countless eras and assets, from gold in the 1970s to Bitcoin in its early crashes. In both cases, the masses couldn't endure the final stretch of uncertainty and sold only to watch from the sidelines as prices multiplied. The irony of such cycles is cruel yet consistent. The market tests conviction by creating discomfort so great that only the most patient survive it. For those holding speculative currencies today, that discomfort has reached its peak. Forums are filled with conflicting updates. Every hour brings a new intel leak, claiming the end is either imminent or indefinitely delayed. It's the emotional equivalent of a pressure cooker. And most participants don't realize the game isn't about exchange rates. It's about endurance. The coming days could reveal who among them truly understands that wealth accumulation in any market has less to do with timing and more to do with temperament. Michael Renaer, a fictional former advisor to a European currency policy desk, once described this type of period as the final rinse cycle, the moment before a major shift when uncertainty drives out everyone lacking conviction. His words, though speculative in this context, capture a universal market truth. Every boom begins with despair. In the rumor-driven worlds of speculative investing, this rinse cycle becomes especially brutal. Traders, bloggers, and hopeful holders all reach a breaking point where logic gives way to fatigue. The community fragments. One faction clings to hope. Another insists the dream is dead. Yet if you study enough financial manias from the South Sea bubble to the dot-com bust, the same pattern emerges. Emotional exhaustion clears the field for new accumulation. Whether that accumulation is real or imagined in the Dinar and Dong communities remains to be seen, but the psychology is identical. The strongest players never argue online. They wait quietly, observing the storm of panic, and make their moves when others can no longer think clearly. That is the true battlefield of speculation. Not charts, not data, but patience versus fear. Before anyone rushes to conclusions or starts panic selling, it's crucial to understand what's actually unfolding. What we are seeing isn't the beginning of a financial collapse or a secret revaluation. It's the emotional climax of a long-running speculative narrative. Every market, no matter how niche or unconventional, follows the same psychological pattern: anticipation, euphoria, confusion, despair, stabilization. Those who recognize this rhythm survive it. Those who don't become part of the volatility. In these next few days, social feeds and chat groups will pulse with half-truths, screenshots, and confident declarations from self-proclaimed insiders. These patterns have been observed time and again in meme stocks, in crypto communities, and in fringe investment movements. The intention isn't always malicious, but the effect is the same. Heightened anxiety leads to rash decisions. When one person posts a breaking update, 10 others amplify it. By the time it reaches thousands, the rumor has mutated into something that feels undeniable. That's how digital hysteria forms, not through facts, but through repetition and emotional contagion. A panic window isn't created by financial data. It's created by belief systems colliding with unmet expectations. For many investors, especially those who have waited months or years for a specific outcome, emotional capital has become just as significant as financial capital. When that emotion is threatened, even slightly, it can trigger reactions stronger than any market event. People start to fear they've been misled, that they'll miss the real opportunity, that everyone else knows something they don't. It's the fear of missing out, FOMO, combined with the fear of being wrong, faux bud, a psychological double bind that makes even rational thinkers act impulsively. This is why those October dates feel so ominous to some. They've been imbued with meaning by endless speculation. In truth, the dates are arbitrary. But in a rumor economy, time itself becomes a commodity. Every predicted window creates urgency, and urgency creates engagement. The longer people wait for something that doesn't arrive, the more intense their reactions become. It's not about the currency. It's about the collective psyche of a community that has invested deeply in the hope of change. So what does it mean to ground in facts? It means stepping back from the noise and recentering on verifiable reality. No global banking institution, central bank, or credible financial regulator has announced or hinted at any major revaluation of the IQD or VND. That's not a judgment. That's data. It doesn't make hope invalid, but it places it in proper perspective. What matters most now is emotional discipline, not rumor chasing. The strongest investors in history, from Warren Buffett to Ray Dalio, share one trait. They make decisions based on data and principles, not chatter. They study sentiment because they know that when the crowd moves in one direction too quickly, the truth is often in the opposite direction. If panic spreads between October 16th and 19th, the calm observer will not see it as catastrophe, but as a case study in mass psychology, proof of how digital networks can amplify human emotion faster than ever before. The real message then isn't about an RV event. It's about understanding how speculation operates in the era of instant communication. Every repost, or intel drop is a tiny market event in itself, not because it changes fundamentals, but because it shifts sentiment. In that way, every investor becomes both participant and influencer in the same emotional economy. Recognizing this dynamic is the first step toward mastering it. Bad news? Yes, confusion is coming. Game over? Absolutely not. In speculative markets, panic doesn't signal the end. It signals exhaustion. When sentiment reaches its breaking point, the noise peaks and those without discipline start to abandon their positions. Ironically, that moment of capitulation is often the same moment the cycle resets. What we're witnessing in mid-October isn't proof of a hidden global currency event. It's proof of human behavior repeating itself. The disbelief, the ridicule, the bursts of hope followed by sudden panic. They're not unique to this movement. They're the universal fingerprints of speculation. That's why Warren Buffett's quote endures. The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. The principle applies everywhere. Crypto, real estate, equities, or exotic currency chatter. The lesson is the